Okay guys, I just wanted to create a short, hopefully 15-minute tutorial video here on your week 4 checkpoint assignment. I went ahead and pulled it up here, and this is what is due for this week. Basically you need a program that's going to model a worm's behavior. Okay, you're gonna model a worm. Why they picked a worm, I don't know. Okay, but basically this worm is moving towards an apple. Okay, just like worms do. They like apples. As the worm's moving, each time it moves, the worm cuts its distance between itself and the apple by its own body length, right? Which makes sense. I don't think a worm can that would require the worm to jump and plop itself down every time, but whatever. So each time the worm moves, it moves a distance that is equal to the length of the worm, right? And so the whole purpose of this algorithm is, how many times does it take the worm to move to get to this apple? Okay. Now what isn't stated here is that basically you need the user to input a couple of things, and I'm gonna go through an example that's similar to this. It's not your assignment. I can't do the assignment for you, but it's very similar. And let's look at the rubric here really quick and see what's required for this assignment. First is you need to correctly prompt the user for the needed input. That's what I was just talking about. What input is required for this? And we'll talk about that. You need to correctly display the result to the user once you've iterated over the number of times the worm has crawled. You need to basically say it took the worm X number of times to get to the apple, right? And finally, the biggest thing that's worth 20 points is you need to correctly use the iteration control structure, right? This iteration control structure is pseudocode, and I'm going to show you guys basically how to do that on an example that's similar. Okay, so let's just go ahead and dive in really quick, and let's think about this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is a similar thing, a similar assignment, but instead of a worm and a apple, what I'm going to do is something that's a little more real world here. Give me a sec. Okay, so I just opened up a new Word document really fast, but I'm going to do something a little more real world, and instead of this worm and this apple, I'm going to say a user takes out a loan, basically, right? And the loan is X amount of dollars, and let's say you have to make payments on this loan, so you have to pay so much money on this loan per month. How many months does it take to pay off this loan? And what I want to do is use this iterative control structure to figure this out instead of using division, right? So how do I do that? Well, first off is we want to write this in pseudocode. How do we write pseudocode? Well, I created this nifty little document for week 3 called Pseudocode Building Blocks that basically lists all the different pseudocode keywords. They're all within this document. There's about, I don't know, 8 or 9 of them. All the ones here that are bold are basically key words, okay? And basically I need you guys to use these pseudocode keywords, which all have examples associated with them, to write this program. Okay, so I would suggest having this document up beside your assignment so you can keep referring back to this document in order to do it. So let's do this loan example. Okay, so how would we do this? Well, first we have to have a main module, right? And let me just increase the font size here a little bit so you guys can kind of see what the heck I'm doing here. Every programs have a main module. Okay, so that would be the first thing I would do, is write the main module. And notice that as soon as I wrote the main module, I go ahead and include the end immediately, because knowing me, I'm going to forget to throw in the end, and a real compiler would try to compile this and just would complain because it never hits the end of the module. Okay, so when you create a module, go ahead and throw in the end. Okay, what's the second thing? Well, the second thing is you need user input. You need to know how much is the loan, right? So let's go ahead and tell the user, display how big, how big is the loan, right? Because this is the first thing we need in order to do this algorithm. Okay, and the second thing we need is to actually type it in and then store it off into memory somewhere. So let's say I'm going to say input loan amount, and at this point I realize, uh-oh, I haven't declared that variable yet. Okay, so I'm going to go up here and type declare loan amount, and typically loans is currency, right? So I'm going to use this declare command, and I want you guys to recognize all of these commands here are in here. So if I want to do declare, I'm going to come over here, look at declare. Here it is. I have to declare it like this and use as. As what? Well, it's probably going to be a float, right? Same with display. I've got display written right here, how display needs to be used. Same with input. If you go down to here, I've listed input and how input needs to be used. Okay, so I really need you guys to refer back to this document. And it's the same with all programming languages. You have basically a specification for each programming language. In each programming language, you kind of want to have have another screen up that tells you how to use these commands. Okay, and that's just the way it is in the software world. You have to be very specific with all these commands, or the compiler's not going to like you, and you're not going to get anything done. Okay. Okay, so the first thing, how big is the loan? Well, what's the other thing we need to know? Well, how large are the payments that you're making per month? Right? And I'm going to input that into let's say payment amount. Okay. And here again, here's another variable. I haven't declared it. So what do I need to do? I need to go back up and declare a new payment amount, right? So I want you guys to notice that as you're writing software, you don't just start from the top down and know everything that you're going to write at the top. It's an iterative process. You're gonna be writing the program and realize, oh crap, I forgot something at the top. I need to go back up and put it up here. You're going to be, oh crap, I forgot this module. I need to put in that module name. And that's the way software works. Okay, you're not going to know how to do all this off the top of your head. You just need to take it step by step and say, okay, what's the first thing I need to know? I need to know how big the loan is, right? So I need to display it and input it. What's the next thing I need to know? I need to know how big the payments are. So I'm going to display how large are the payments, and then I'm going to input it. Okay, so I'm hoping that by you guys watching me do this, that light bulbs are going to start going off. Okay. Next thing we need to do is use this iterative loop structure to figure out how long does it take to pay this off. Well, what's the best iterative structure to use? I'm going to say probably a do-while loop. You could probably just use a while loop, but let's do the do-while loop here. Okay. Here's the do-while loop. Here's an example of how it's done. So I'm going to follow that example. I'm just looking right over there. Okay. And what's the condition that we're going to loop on? Well, we basically want to loop until loan amount is less than or equal to 0, right? Call me crazy. We want to keep going through this loop until the loan's paid off. The loan is equal to 0, or it's less than 0. Let's say we overpay, right? Okay, so what do we do in this loop? Well, we want to take the loan amount, right, and we want to subtract the payment amount from the loan amount. Okay, so the first time around, it's going to subtract. Let's say we put in $100 for the payments. Let's say the loan amount's 500. It's going to be 500 equals 500 minus 100, 400. It's going to run this statement. Is 400 less than or equal to 0? No. So it's going to loop back up, right? So now we have 400. 400 is equal to 400 minus 100. Well, that's 300. So now the next run is 300 less than 0. No. So it's going to loop back around, right? And now we're at 200, etc., until loan amount is finally equal to 0 or less than 0. it's going to execute this line. Is loan amount equal to 0? Yes, it's done. Okay, it's done executing this loop. Okay, so it's going to loop until loan amount is equal to 0. The problem I see here is that we're not really counting the number of times that it takes to pay this off, so there's no real useful information here. So what I'm going to do here is add a counter, right? Just so that we can count how many months it's going to take to pay this off, right? So now once I declared this counter here, though, there's a problem. I haven't declared it up above. So what do? I go back up, I declare it, and since it's not a currency, I'm going to say it's an integer, you know, or a real. Your book uses real, but I'm going to use integer. So we're going to declare count as an integer, and you initially want to set that equal to 0, right? You know, that could be the default, but let's just make sure that it's clear. Set that to 0. So now when we go through this loop, count is going to start at 0, but it's going to start incrementing by 1. So it's going to count the number of loops it takes to pay that loan off. And then finally, once we've looped through, you know, and loan amount is equal to 0, now all of a sudden what I can do is display to the user, it took this many, you know, months, let's say, to pay off the loan. And then at the end here, you can say count, right? Okay, and I want you guys to look at this and see how similar this is to your assignment. Instead of a loan, you guys have a worm and an apple, right? And there's a distance between this worm and an apple, very similar to a loan, right? The amount of the loan is a distance from you paying off the loan, right? Same thing. And then the second thing is you have a worm length. Well, the worm length is equivalent to the payment amount, right? So I want you guys to kind of put 2 and 2 together here, and come up with the pseudocode that will do this worm example for you. And I'm hoping that this example is really going to help you guys out. Okay, so make sure though that you use this week 3 pseudocode building blocks, because I want to see this specific syntax used for any of these commands. Okay. And you guys should do great. So if you have to watch this video again and just kind of watch me how I kind of go through and create this pseudocode, and I think things are gonna start making a lot more sense to you guys. Okay. And again, email me if you have any questions, and I'll answer them. And let's have a great assignment. Thanks a lot, guys.